So today, I'm in Norwich, where behind me is a reform event, where I'm going to be speaking to some of the candidates, chairmen, and reform supporters to find out if they're hopeful for the future of British politics and what they feel the biggest issue currently plaguing the UK is, as well as some other topics we'll get into. Let's go inside. Are you hopeful about the future of reform?
I am, yeah. We've had Labour, we've had Tories, and obviously ex-servicemen, and they both let us down. So I think it's only fair that reform should have a chance to show what they can actually do, not only for us, but for the country and the county. Yeah.
Have you been involved politically before this, or?
No. That's been something I've always been well away from.
Yeah. So what kind of pushed you to get involved?
The fact that it's all going wrong, really, and I thought it's not going right, it's not going well. Just me turning up might make that fraction of a difference, you know, and that's really what it is. And I thought if I'm going to do that, then it needs to be reform I do it with.
And what do you think the biggest issue facing Norfolk is?
I'm not sure. It's difficult. There's quite a few issues. Break it down for me.
Let's open it up to the entire of the UK, right? Would you say that immigration, the cost of living, what would you say to you is the biggest issue?
This is probably where I shouldn't be talking, but they're actually building a lot of houses. I'm not quite sure who's going to be filling them because the prices they're going to be, you can't afford it if you're a young lad like yourself. But if you're getting it free, then that's fine. So that concerns me because everywhere I go, I cycle a lot, and I cycle all over Norfolk, and all you see is houses. And I understand we need houses for the population, but however, I don't understand how we're actually going to fill them because there's no actual infrastructure around some of these houses.
So in the upcoming election, I mean, how do you see things going for reform?
So in terms of Norfolk, unfortunately, our local elections have been cancelled. We do have some by-elections. We had one a few weeks ago in Bedingfield, which we won with over 50% of the vote, which is fantastic and really shows the level of support we have here in Norfolk. We've got another one in Toftwood and Dereham, which is a town council by-election on the 20th of March, and we're hoping for a similar result. Had we had an election in Norfolk, we would have swept the board. We really would have taken a large part of the county council, and I think that's ultimately why the election was postponed.
Well, let's talk about that. So you mentioned the elections being postponed. I was in the council meeting when that happened. How do you feel that democracy is being put on hold in the name of devolution?
It's clearly not in the name of devolution. They could have had the election and then done the devolution. The election would not have prevented the devolution from happening. It was just a convenient excuse to not have the election because they knew exactly what was going to happen, which was that Reform were going to come in and take control. And we would have been resistant to the things that they wanted to do. We weren't going to be part of any cosy backroom deals. We're here to represent the people and reform the way government is run. And that's not something that the establishment wants or are willing to countenance. So that's why it was postponed. That's why we are where we are.
As the I think it's North Norfolk, you said, yeah?
Mid-Norfolk.
So as the Mid-Norfolk chairman, what are the biggest issues you see plaguing Norfolk at the moment?
Biggest issues we have in Mid-Norfolk surround healthcare and the lack of provision, particularly for our elderly people, transport and the lack of infrastructure, and taxation and the level of burden there is on businesses. We've got high streets, 3 big high streets in Mid-Norfolk in Attleborough, Dereham and Wotton. All 3 of those high streets are dying. The council, district council, is bringing in parking charges, which is making that situation even worse. So we need to get into council soon in order to prevent the rot of our high streets.
Yeah. So are you aware of the Best Western Hotel in Beaufort?
I'm not familiar with it, no.
So they're housing illegal immigrants in there. And there was a story not too long ago about how they were complaining that they've not got any air conditioning in the room, and the council actually paid for it. So they paid to put air conditioning in each and every one of the rooms, which is quite an expensive process for a hotel. And meanwhile, you've got, I don't know how many homeless in Norwich, but you've got a lot. I mean, walking down the high street, you've got quite a big homeless problem. Do you feel that homelessness, economic migrants being prioritised over homeless in our country?
I think that it is out of control. I've seen firsthand, it's not just the Best Western in Norwich. The Park Hotel in Diss, where I used to work, has also been taken over with asylum seekers. I used to be a mortgage advisor, and I had clients who were letting their HMOs to Serco, who are employed by the government to put asylum seekers in there. So we know about the hotels because they're widely publicised. What we don't see is the hundreds, if not thousands, of houses of multiple occupancy which are being let to asylum seekers. And you're absolutely right. We should be prioritising local people. That's what Reform stands for. I've seen videos of homeless people in the doorway near these hotels, and it's just beggars belief to think that the council is spending money on air conditioning in a country which rarely goes above 30 degrees Celsius. It's wrong, and I suspect they've been forced into it by lawyers. If they haven't, then shame on them. But really, this just confirms to me why the ECHR is no longer fit for purpose. We need to leave so we can bring some common sense back to this.
Well, can I ask why you left Reform, if that's...
Well, I clearly haven't left. I just stopped working for Reform. I was fired. Basically, the new chairman was given a specific role by Farage, make the party election ready in 2029, and he wanted to clear the deck so he had his team so he could do it his way. I've been working with Farage for 20 odd years, and I'm set in my ways. Old dog, different tricks. And it makes sense. My nose wasn't put out of joint because I understood the way our styles were different, and he's the boss. He makes the call, so no big deal. I mean, it's not I'm not a toy chucker. I get it. I've always been. It's quite fun. I've now become an activist again. I was an activist before I got a job, and I'm an activist again, and it's fine. I have no problem. I'm doing events like this up and down the country. And honestly, I've been involved in politics now for about 30 years. I'm very weird in Reform in that I'm a professional politician. Almost everybody else have come at it because they've been told by their spouse to stop shouting at the radio. I've been doing it professionally for many, many years. And so I provide a little bit of leavening of that. But in all that 30 years, I have never seen so much enthusiasm. You'll see it tonight. You'll see the mood, the people. They're really nice, but they're fired up. They want to make the world a better place. And there's no malice there. There's just a desire to do something about it. And it was a little bit like this during the Brexit period, but I've never seen such optimism. And I say, you'll see it. You're here. You will see it this evening. You'll see this feeling. It's really extraordinary. I wouldn't call it revivalist, but it has that real feel that we can actually do something. We don't have to just get given what we're told and to do what we're told and get given whatever the main parties, the legacy parties give us. There's a feeling we can do something. And it's wonderful to watch and to be part of. So I'm very happy. I mean, I'm doing 3 or 4 of these this month, over the next month. Wrexham, down in Somerset, in various other parts of the country, and the mood is the same everywhere. One of the things I found very interesting during this last general election last year, in all general elections, you have this thing where the sixth forms do a mock election at school. I think, from what I understand, 1/3 of the mock elections in secondary schools in Britain voted Reform. Which, when you think the kids are supposed to be Greens or this, that, and the other, to discover that actually a significant number aren't. Because they see, what do they want in their future? Somewhere to live. Well, sorry, mate, you're not going to be able to have one of those. And if you haven't got somewhere to live, why go through the risk and the pain and the financial cost and everything else of having a family? Why would I bring children into the world when I know that I will never have a house? And so we provide an opportunity, a thought that, you know what, there can be a better way. So if you cut the mass immigration down to reasonable levels, if 1 million people arriving in the year, house prices are going to go up because we can't build that many. So basic economics, limited supply, unlimited demand, prices. Simple as that. And that sort of thing. Having a party that's actually prepared to say it without being ghastly. is something that I think is appealing to a lot of people. And also, the fact is that Farage, because he frankly doesn't care what you think, he's not worried that people might dislike him or all the rest of it, and that level, even though, what is he? He's a 60-year-old ex-public school banker, not the sort of person you'd think would cut through to a working class kid in an estate in Hartlepool. And yet, because he doesn't pretend to be any better than he is, he doesn't come over as I'm more moral than you guys. He has that authenticity. He is believable. He is likable because he doesn't pretend to be good. He just believes in stuff, and it's not. It's often people accuse him of being populist. He's not. He's unpopulist. He takes positions that are deeply unpopular because he believes in them. When I started working with Farage in 2004, the idea of Brexit was, I think, 4%. 12 years later, we won a referendum. That was not a populist move to believe in that, to give up his life, to fight for something that was deeply unpopular. But he changed the world. He changed the weather. And I think net zero is going to be one, where currently 80% of people say it's a good thing. 4 years' time, when they've had 4 years of fuel jobs lost and prices go up, then people might go, hold on, maybe they were right all along. Don't know yet. But he doesn't take policy, he doesn't take positions just because the world tells him to. He does it because he believes in it. So that's, and that, I think that appeals to people, even people who wouldn't normally think that they were that minded politically.
What organisation was it that you were from?
I'm from Reform UK, and I am the chair of the Broadlands and Fakenham branch, which is in the middle of Norfolk, if anybody doesn't know where it is. It's a very long shaped constituency, and it takes a very long time to go from one end to the other. So yes, it uses a lot of fuel getting around that constituency.
Would you say you're hopeful for the future of reform?
I'm very hopeful for the future of reform, but I think, like any organisation, it really depends on the people who are in the organisation. So what's really clear to me at the moment is we've got a huge amount of momentum and support across the country, and we're getting a lot of people coming forward who want to be candidates, which is actually absolutely brilliant. But we always, we need more people to come and be candidates and volunteer to do that and put their names forward. And we also need more people to come and be volunteers. And it's not just the traditional things of going out delivering leaflets. There are so many other things that people can do if they would like to get involved in help. But yeah, I'm super, super positive. Reform has got a great message, common sense policies. I just think Reform UK is the future, and this group of people, you look around, the people who are in this room, we've got young people, we've got older people, and the party's full of people from different backgrounds. And yeah, if you want to be part of the future, come and get involved with Reform UK is what I'd be saying to people.
How do you feel then about the by-elections being cancelled? Because I was in the meeting at the time it happened, and I don't know. It confuses me that they can put democracy on hold in the name of devolution. Again, something that no one asked for. So how do you feel that the elections have been postponed?
I think there's a fundamental principle here, and it's about democracy being at stake and allowing people to exercise their vote in the appropriate timescale is absolutely fundamental to democracy. We've just we've been in situations, for example, in this country where there was a war and we didn't have an election for a while. You'll know recently in the news, President Zelensky's been in the news. But how can they have a election cycle in the Ukraine at the moment? The country's at war. This country is not at war. Well, not one of those types of wars anyway. So we need to have elections because it is absolutely the fundamental right of every citizen to be able to express their wishes at the ballot box. And anybody who denies citizens that right is undemocratic and is, quite frankly, no better than any other dictator.
Are you hopeful about the future of reform?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's really happening out there. It really is. And the people... In fact, I've just been talking to a Lib Dem who's come here tonight, and that just shows you the step change of what's going on in our politics, not just locally, but even, indeed nationally. So yes, very hopeful indeed.
Are you concerned about the by-elections being postponed in May in the name of devolution? They're putting democracy on hold.
Devolution for me is more of power upwards, and I'm dead against power upwards. So for me, the May elections being postponed was anti-democratic, anti-British, and anti-everything what our forefathers fought for. I know that sounds romantic, but it's the truth. It literally is the truth. So I'm dead against the unitary authorities because I say the money will be circled around one person and one team, as opposed to the people living in the villages, in the towns, etc. So I'm very against it.
What would you say the main issue is currently facing that the UK is currently facing?
Immigration, of course, massively. Net zero, because I am an advocate of the British citizen, and they are struggling day to day. And I mean, it's not just Nanny who's struggling to put the heating on in winter, it's the average working class person, because they cannot afford their electric or gas bills. And again, it's not romantic nonsense. This is the truth. So I have concerns for those people, just people who go to work to keep their heads above water. It infuriates me. And these are the people who are the bedrock of our society. They're the taxpayers. They're the people who get up in the morning. And they are being absolutely discarded by any central government, and they have been for the past 15 years.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me on to my next topic then, is kind of how the working class is being stuffed. And that is our current involvement with Ukraine. Now, whether you support Russia or Ukraine, I think that's kind of irrelevant, because at the end of the day, we all support Britain, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on in Parliament at the moment, after what President Trump did, I'm kind of concerned for the future. We've got our own issues with mass terrorism, stabbings that happening daily, grooming gangs, and yet there's a potential of us being sent off to die in a different country, national conscription. So how do you feel about our involvement with the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Okay, Ukraine itself is difficult territory, because we do live with hearts on our sleeves in this country. They do forget something about 15, 20 years ago when there was kind of a dictatorship in Ukraine. But for me, about the British working classes and the British peoples themselves, what I despise is that they are chastised, and this will be covered on my speech a little bit. They are chastised for being far-right hooligans. Yet these far-right hooligans are the first people to sign up to the duty of call, and when the arms are up, when the issue of call to arms is issued. So it infuriates me that we just use this at a really superficial level, that they are chastised one day, and the next day they are heroes. So yes, I'm dead against it. 100% dead against it, because it's a hypocrisy.
Are you excited about the future of Reform?
Very much so. I feel there's a strong base now. We're getting professionals, and the support is growing all the time, and the feel-good factor's there. Just it's a long while before we can actually implement some of the things we want to do.
So you were there with me inside the council hall meeting the day that they voted to postpone the elections. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's totally anti-democratic. As we know, 3/4 of the guys in the room, or ladies and gentlemen in the room that day, voted to cancel the elections on May the 1st. About a quarter of them, 25%, wanted the election to go ahead. We've got a gentleman here this evening that was one of those people that wanted the election to go ahead.
Just over there, yeah.
Which I think you should definitely have a chat with. And but yeah, it's a sad thing. But the Conservative Party saddled up with the Labour Party to cancel our election, which is totally undemocratic. And all it's done is given them a power for another year at least. And I think it will be a year. I think it'll be 2 or 3 before we actually get a chance to say something again.
And what do you think the biggest issue currently the UK is currently facing is?
Crumbs. Where do we start? The mass influx of illegal entrants who we don't know what their history, what their background is. We've also got a lot of people in the country that are visa overstayers. I think the last figure I saw in 2022 was like 1.8 million people in the country that are pretty much here and should be gone back. They overstayed their visas. That's a big issue. Basic crime is not being dealt with. Shop thefts. If you work in Tesco's and someone comes in and fill their rucksack with steaks, you can't challenge them. Yeah. They just walk out the shop with all the stuff they've stolen, and yet they'll go and arrest someone for saying something on the World Wide Web. That's their own opinion. So the country's going one way badly, and it's a sad case of affairs. If everything was rosy red, this party would not exist. This party only exists because everyone can see what's going wrong with our country.
I'm a current county councillor and borough councillor at Kingston in West Norfolk.
And who did you stand for?
I stood for the Conservatives at the last election.
Yeah.
But this evening, I am resigning from the Conservative Party and joining Reform. And I'm going to call an election so there's an election in my county division, so that there is going to be at least one election in Norfolk this year. So I will stand for Reform in that election.
And what kind of catapulted it for you? Why did you decide to leave the Conservative Party?
The unitary vote was perhaps the last nail in the coffin. Our group wasn't allowed a free vote. You either voted for it or you didn't. So I and others left the room anyway. But over the years, I've become disillusioned with us. The Conservative Party is no more than a Liberal Party now. I think my true home now is with a Reform, a proper Conservative Party.
So when they voted to postpone the election, how did you feel that they can halt the democratic process in the name of devolution?
I think it's absolutely wrong. As I've said to many people, I think our service personnel have died to save democracy, and that's blatant misuse of it now. They should not have cancelled an election. We didn't during COVID.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you as well then, so I see you've got the Ukraine badge on there, and I'm not going to ask whether you... I'm not going to bring up whether I support Ukraine or Russia, because I don't support... my support lies with Britain. And what I wanted to ask you was, how do you have an opinion, a stance on... so I think Keir Starmer recently gave like £2 billion to Ukraine. How do you feel about that? Are you in support of it or are you against it?
Ukraine is like a dam between Europe and Russia. Taking politics out of it, I do think we need to support Ukraine. There's no two ways about it. I've seen what happened. I remember the Iron Curtain. We do not want that again. I've got the Israeli badge on as well. I spend a fair bit of time in London. I can walk anywhere in London on the tubes and people come up to me and say, "You're brave having those badges on." But that's how I feel. I support both countries.
You're especially brave walking through what is now known as the Middle East of the UK, which is London. It doesn't feel like Britain anymore, does it?
No, I actually walked through a Palestinian protest the other day with an Israel badge on, and I survived.
Did they come up to you and say anything?
I had some nasty remarks, but but then you get other people on the tubes come up and give you a big hug or thank you for supporting our country. So I've got friends that are Ukrainians, back in King's Lynn, and I've got friends who are from Israel. So support them.